Biomutant is a boring game that survives on charm. I mean, what other open world game stars a bipedal mutant cat thing that specializes in martial arts? This is an RPG in which you can leap from your grotesque, grinning horse, summon a ball of mucus around yourself to roll up your enemies like ants on a moist jawbreaker, detonate the mucus to send them flying, and finish with a slow-motion Max Payne-esque volley of electric bolts from a gun with a trumpet horn for a muzzle. It's tragic, then, that the hollow progression and an incessant narrator suck out so much of the joy in Biomutant. Biomutant feels like it's going to be much more, but it's an endless stream of new ideas that go nowhere and beautiful toxic landscapes with little to offer except an excuse to use photo mode. I'm at 127 screenshots and counting. It's especially disappointing because Biomutant's nonchalant, optimistic vision of the post-apocalypse is a refreshing take on the end times, with a weasel dressed like Elvis for every fascist cannibal emperor in Fallout. But if you strip out the gangly, affable Muppets, all that's left is a broken open-world RPG with little else to discover except another cheap riff on the same color-matching puzzle plastered over a rotary phone or microwave or whatever. Biomutant's human-free post-apocalypse is both stern and sweet. It imagines the worst-case scenario for mankind. Total eradication from pollution, late capitalist greed and exploitation, war. Remember war? It's a good who's who of the biggest bummers. But it also depicts a vibrant world teeming with life after we're gone. Even though there's another apocalypse on the way, it's embraced with curiosity and inevitability by most of Earth's citizens. From a hulking chef who only aspires to make the tastiest food possible to a mousy fashionista who wants everyone to freely express themselves before the end. I respect stories that give the void a warm hug, so I'm surprised how much the narration and writing made me wish Biomutant's world ended yesterday. David Shaw Parker's performance as the omnipotent narrator isn't bad, but his saccharine tone clashes with the fragmented English in the writing, which is often embarrassingly twee. I never ever want to hear a Shakespearean voice describe piss and shit as yellow juice and brown bobs ever again.
A flush stool from the back in time. It's an apparatus that sunks yellow juice and brown bobs. Let's try out the brush away, see if you can off-chase some drip droppings.
The characters don't help. They're written more like fuzzy parables than three-dimensional fur people. Cute glimpses of their personal lives are interrupted by long-winded lectures on morality intercut with your character's personal monologue, all narrated by Shaw. If I couldn't slam spacebar to move things along, Biomutant would be made irredeemable by the narration alone. It's a case of subtraction by addition, a performance that washes over and homogenizes the impressive breadth of creativity in the mutant models and glazes over their surface-level allegory with lethal levels of pomp and circumstance. Biomutant's beautiful world is much better off speaking for itself, from a distance at least.
He doesn't want to be a pebble in your shoe, but if you'd help find some better...
It's easy to see why Biomutant draws so many comparisons to The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild. There's my little ferret guy coasting through the air on a paraglider. The gnarled roots of the Tree of Life spiraling off in every direction, grassy knolls cut through with rivers and roads, an old highway crumbling above it all, orange buttes jutting up in the east, a massive black scar to the west, a crumbling city skyline sinking into the crust. I mean, it looks amazing on a good PC, and every vista is a promise of adventure, but nearly every journey is the same.
Vump is the place to be, obviously.
The classic open world mantra applies here. If you see it, you can go there. But should you go there? Probably not. That eerie tower at the top of the mountain and the deep cavern buried beneath the suburbs are both just full of junk and simple puzzles like every other location in Biomutant. Side quests are bland too, most of which involve finding old world technology to complete an impressive breadth of variations of the same spinning dial color matching puzzle.
Seems like the tighteners on the piping need to be unturned correctly to drain the flush stool.
The first lap around the map, I was drunk on Biomutant scenery. It's a genuinely stunning setting, and you get some fancy rides to unravel it with, including a huge mechanical hand that turns into a literal hand cannon. Is it useful? Almost never. But is it cool? Yes. Which kind of defines the bulk of Biomutant, really. Because whether stomping around the ruins of a city in a huge mech or gliding through a toxic swamp on a homemade jet ski with an iron dragon head bolted onto the front, the terrain is rarely an obstacle or threat, and the creatures in the farthest corners of the map are rarely a bigger problem than those in the starting area. Enemies are largely the same basic archetypes with different fur coats, and while they're all incredible to behold, from huge tigers in denim vests to oily-eyed tree stump wolf things, they're not much fun to fight after a couple hours, in part because of how quickly your stats and powers balloon in Biomutant. Layer in perks, per level stat boosts, and psi powers, and your cute little mutant will hit demigod status alarmingly fast. Just a few hours of running off to explore and do side quests gave me a surplus of high-level loot, rendering most of the vendors, upgrade stations, and the basic crafting systems themselves useless for the bulk of my 20-hour playthrough. With no need to buy or upgrade items, I didn't need to put any leveling points into my barter skill, and I can only recall 2 minor conversations that benefited from my high persuasion stat. So everything was then just funneled into health, strength, agility, and my mutant psi powers. The hard difficulty option can't account for the glut of gear and simple combat design in Biomutant either. But here's that charm again, barely keeping me afloat in the form of my Kylo Ren looking ferret decked out like a Jinko Jeans catalog model. If only my huge pants made a damn difference. And I guess they kind of do, because for all its problems, I still like Biomutant. I enjoyed it with a big pained grin, much like the horrific smile of my spherically domed horse. I grit my teeth through the painful narration and groundless progression, if only to see what kind of fucked up Muppet it would throw at me next. Biomutant is an extravagant cartoon diorama unlike anything on PC. It's just not much fun to play or listen to.